Your show.
Okay, this is Al Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb. Maghreb. Okay, build it. They are actually located in Algeria, and their original name was the Salafist Group for Preaching and Combat, and that was the French acronym for that.
Please pause for a moment.
Yes.
Why do I hear you? That wasn't an answer to my question.
You shouldn't hear me.
That wasn't an answer to my question either.
What's the answer to the question?
I don't know.
Why?
Okay. Continue.
Okay, so they were formed because they split from the Armed Islamic Group, which was the original armed thing. They're an anti-government organization, and so once they split from that, then they were the AQIM, which is the acronym for that, and
For
then
what?
Al Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb.
Very good.
And they took on a whole bunch of new values of like not wanting to kill civilians or do a whole bunch of damage. They're mostly just like local, like anti-government stuff. Okay, ideology.
Ideology. It's a tough.
They targeted local governments in the surrounding area and all of those other countries. They targeted a lot of the what's it called, like the buildings for other countries.
Infrastructure.
Embassies. They attacked those, and they funded a lot of their war projects. They would kidnap really high up people and hold them for ransom, and they made about like $50 million in the last decade off of kidnappings and ransoms. They aligned with Al Qaeda in 2007, but that was more like their benefits, so their kind of training and weapons and stuff like that. They don't necessarily agree with all of Al Qaeda's terrorism ideas. So early years, they started in 1998, and then in 2007, that's when they merged with Al Qaeda. And from there, they've had just kind of made like minor attacks, like not necessarily like huge, like 9/11 type of attacks, but just like car bombings and stuff like that. Their leaders, top commander was Bala Mokhtar. He split in their early years and took a group of fighters with him, and they participated in the Nimes hostage crisis in Algeria, and they openly acted on behalf of Al Qaeda, but he later came back and rejoined them. I think that's him. Abdel Hamid Abouzeid, he was one of their top leaders, and he was killed in 2013 by French and Chadian forces. Yamin. He's the dude that plans a lot of their kidnapping and ransom operations, so he's kind of the person in charge of all of that. Attacks. This is just a chart of like all the kidnappings that they had. It's gone down as time's gone on, so they're not really as big of an influence in Algeria anymore. One of their earlier attacks was they had 2 car bombs and they bombed the prime minister office in Algeria. In 2015, they took over 100 hostages in Mali, and over 19 people were actually killed. And in 2019, so more of a recent one, they attacked 10 UN peacekeepers. And this is just a chart of like some of their attacks. Oh gosh. And it's just kind of all around surrounding countries, not necessarily in Algeria where they're located. What's that?
So I have a couple questions for you. If you don't know, that's fine.
Okay.
I find it curious. They are based in Algeria, is that right?
Mhm.
And yet they do some of their attacks outside of Algeria. Why? What do they want?
I'm not really sure. They're just kind of.
We will explore that. Okay. And then the second question I have for you: why the French? You said that they were confronted by the French. Why the French?
I'm not necessarily sure about that. I know that they're different from Al Qaeda because the governments that they're against, like the farthest out they go is like Spain, and I think French too. So that
Partly, both questions have something to do with each other. The reason that this group targets that area around Algeria is because you are looking at the former French-controlled area of Africa, northwest Africa. So that's why they targeted the whole area. They're anti-French, and that's why the French were the ones that handled them, because they looked at it as a former colony in need of help from this terrorist group. Very good. Any other questions? Nice job. What nice.
And just as a reminder, you're responsible ultimately for 20 truths, right? So take a minute break. I'll just get set up for the next thingy. We're going to write the next paragraph of your Vietnam paper. Then we will start looking at why the U.S. attacked Iraq in 1991.
Did you write a paragraph on Monday or Tuesday?
I don't remember.
'Cause I was gone both those days. Okay.
Am I correct in saying we've written 5 paragraphs and we only have the 6 left?
Yeah, correct.
Yay! That's fantastical.
I gotta rip this cut out.
How many of you have typed, started typing this, or are we all in the writing mode, which is fine? We're all in the writing mode? Okay, that's fine. You can assume that I want this to be a typed paper. So when you have time, get this onto a Google Doc, and then I will create a space for you to turn it in on Classroom. Okay. Are we ready to attack the 6th paragraph? So the first thing I want you to do is provide a bit of what I call contextualization. Those of you in CIS, you've heard this before. Here we go. I only see 1, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. You 2. That's it. So the first thing I want you to do is you basically start this paragraph. This is the concluding paragraph. Throughout history. Now, you don't have to do that every time, but that's the idea. That you're putting this in perspective of how does the Vietnam War fit in the bigger picture of history. And so I'm going to let you copy word for word the beginning of the contextualization sentence. I will read it. It says, from 1945 to 1990, the U.S. was involved in the Cold War. Period. This is another way of saying throughout history. This is just another way of saying it. Or, did I say you had to write that one?
yeah.
I've got some options. Or, throughout its history, the U.S. is engaged in warfare. Or, capitalism and democracy have been vigorously defended by the U.S. Pick one of those. Or, if you're a brainiac, make your own. I don't care. But finish the sentence by somehow bringing it back to Vietnam. For example, throughout its history, the U.S. is engaged in warfare, period. This trend continued in the 1960s and 1970s in Vietnam, period. And then what you do is you ask the question. And if you raise your hand right now and say, what question? I have failed. I shall go to Miss Donnelly and resign. Now, don't raise your hand and say, I don't know what question is because I want you to quit. Don't do that. If you honestly, genuinely don't know what the question is, then okay, ask. No one's asking. That means you know what the question is. Go ahead.
How would we end like
The first one? From 1945 to 1990, the U.S. was involved in the Cold War, period. Part of this conflict was the Vietnam War, which started in the 1960s and continued to the 70s. Whatever. Right? Just bring it back to Vietnam. Picture this sentence as a funnel. It goes from big idea to Vietnam. Right? You're bringing it to Vietnam.
Or this trend continued throughout the 1960s.
Yeah, 1960s and 70s. I think the U.S. officially started getting involved in Vietnam in 59, and we were out by 73. Although we still had a presence at the American Embassy until 75. So there's your parameters, 59 to 75, kind of. Oops. Can you guys see this?
Yeah.
You don't need me to do.
No, I think you're good.
Why do we
That
have
helps a
such an
little bit,
empty
yeah.
class?
Apparently they're gone to Milwaukee,
Mm-hmm.
so that explains their table.
Will's at jazz and Ben's probably in physics.
There's a lot of conflicts.
We don't have any cheerleaders.
So it's a crazy. Okay. Did you, if I were to walk by and look at all of your rough draft 6 paragraphs right now, I should see as the last thing you've written a question mark.
You should see what?
A question mark.
At the end of this?
Yes. I said, and then ask the question. Do you know what the question is?
Yes.
I'm not even telling you to write it word for word. A ballpark should be, but should the U.S. have been in Vietnam? Right? We were there. Should we have been there?
Yes,
Is your opinion.
that was also the right answer.
I have a new challenge for you. This is for everybody. Come on, do it.
Hold on, let me go and break it.
I don't want to, okay.
Okay.
If you want to be in, thumb.
Oh no, we did this in volleyball.
Oh, I hate
Oh.
this crap.
Just this. Ready?
Yeah.
And switch.
Oh,
And now switch. And now switch. And now switch. 8% of the American population can do this. Can.
Well, that's a lot.
92% of the American population cannot do this.
yeah, I'm the.
You're one of the 92.
Am I doing-
Hey, you're in the majority.
Wait, this is why we
I
can
get
play
Powder
Powder
puff.
Puff because Britt.
That's right. That's right.
I like.
Britt could not do this, and so she wanted the senior volleyball. Well, every volleyball player, I was saying absolutely not, and so she said, if I can learn this, and she was terrible, worse than you. And I can't remember how long did I give her? The
You gave her,
weekend,
like-
I think.
You didn't
Yeah,
get
it was
that
like the
long.
next practice.
Yeah.
No.
And she did it. She was motivated.
It's a no.
More
She wanted to
motivated.
play Powder Puff.
She wanted to play powder. Exactly. Okay.
You can't.
Now, we have a few sentences left. Now your job is to, it says here 1 or 2 sentences. Let's go with 1 sentence. We're gonna edit this so it's in 1 sentence. In 1 sentence, list both of the reasons for the side you disagree with. And start it this way. Some people think. Finish it. For example, some people think the U.S. should not have been in Vietnam because the U.S. engaged in gruesome tactics, and the U.S. went against the wishes of the Vietnamese people. Period. List both reasons in one sentence.
Doesn't matter the order. Oh, wait.
You're listing the reasons for the side you disagree with. Yeah. You could probably guess what the next bullet is. It is now in one, let's go with one sentence. In one sentence, list the two correct arguments, but start that sentence this way. Others say, for example, others say the U.S. should have been Vietnam because the U.S. was attempting to create a, what did I just hear? I just over here, a stable nation, comma, and what was the other argument? It helped the U.S. win the Cold War. Very good. Period.
Stop the spread of communism.
That'd be great too. Yep. Awesome. You only have one thing left to do. You okay? Can I get you anything? Coffee, tea, milk?
Yeah. So, Mr. Potter, I really want to start the sentence to say that like the these are the correct.
Okay, so just do it this way. Others say, so you're saying some people think this, others think this. What I still don't know, and I'm about to find out is, what do you think? I haven't seen that yet. That's your last sentence. Some people think this, period. Others think this, period. That's where we're at right now. Did you mark the attendance sheet? And then on that other piece of paper, what I want you to do. So on this one, I want you to find it and then tell me whenever you have time. Monday, you have time. And then which mod? All right. How are we doing? Are we ready?
I'm ready.
So the last sentence is your restatement of thesis.
I was not ready.
Okay. Jeez. And well, I'm going to just forge ahead here, and then you can catch up. It's really easy. Go find your first paragraph, the first paragraph that you wrote, the very first paragraph. Find it. Find the last sentence of paragraph number 1. The last sentence of paragraph number 1. And I am giving you permission for now. Rewrite it. Rewrite it right here. It's your thesis. It is your thesis statement. While this appears to be true, comma, this is true, period. And now I know what you think. Don't worry about it seeming kind of repetitive. That's okay for now.
I feel like if I say the word Vietnamese or Vietnam one more time, it's going to like
Vietnam is going to end.
So I've said it so many times. 1, 2, 3, 4.
The second reason for we should have been there was to stop the communism, right? To stop spread of
I think we said we were attempting to create a stable nation, and it helped us win the Cold War. Which is another way of saying it helped the. It was an attempt to stop the spread of communism. Same thing.
Oh,
I'm going to assume that Ethan speaks on behalf of everyone. Is that fair? I'm going to ask Ethan to make a decision. Ethan, you get to make a decision.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
I want this typed, and I want this submitted to Google Classroom. What's a fair due date for that?
To have this typed by.
That you've already written it. All of you have written it. Just I want it typed. and submitted to Google Classroom. I have not even created a space yet on Google Classroom, but I will. It's going to be called Vietnam paper, 6 paragraphs typed correctly. Today is March 1st. When is a fair due date for me to be able to say, all right, everyone, get your computer, retrieve your paper. We need to tweak it a little bit.
Well,
Or grade it. I might just say, nah, we got to move on. What's a fair due date?
we have a key due on Wednesday next week, so I think it'd be fair if we made it due for the next day, Thursday, the 7th of
Damn.
March.
Thursday or Friday.
I'm going to give you a minute. I'm going to dive a few times off the cliff. So you figure it out.
I have to figure it out. I'm a nice guy. 8th?
Yeah.
Everyone needs the 8th. You need that one extra day? You guys can't crank it out on Thursday, huh?
No.
Thursday's just a no-go for everybody. All right. Friday the 8th.
Didn't even dive. Okay, is that agreeable? No, I don't care if it's agreeable. He made the decision. 1 week from today, it is due, I'll be fair, by the end of the hour. By the end of the hour, it's due. You look very nice.
Thanks.
Okay. Any questions on that? Type this bad boy. Okay, wait. Hold on.
Attendance.
That's the attendance. You'll
Yeah.
explain it.
Yeah.
Okay, take a 2-minute break here. We will start talking about the Persian Gulf Wars.
The day, right, C for conflict and what mods.
I was gone.
No.
Is my thesis my first sentence?
Are you,
Oh, I see.
the days that you will not be here because of conflicts?
Oh,
Not. This
I
is
will never
attendance.
not be
This is
here.
attendance.
Conflicts.
This is for conflicts.
I can't remember.
We'll look it up in your schedule then.
No.
Okay. That's what you're supposed to do.
Maybe Mondays I might have conflicts.
On Monday, I'm just
I
gonna
can't
stay in
remember.
band for next month and then come here. 40 minutes or 40 minutes.
Just give yourself a little note saying this goes there.
Yeah, Peter, you can copy and paste.
Exactly. Copy and paste. So those of you just walking in, there's 2 documents that we're paying attention to. This is mostly for me. Actually, it's just for me. I need to know when you have conflicts. I'm going to take this and verify it because I think some of you are liars. And then just mark that you're here.
I can't remember. I don't know if it's true.
You don't have any conflicts with this class?
Maybe on Mondays. I can't remember.
Don't you have your schedule?
Not on me. I mean, I have Infinite Campus, but I can't read that thing. It's weird. I have like an actual written out one.
No, I need to know though.
I don't think I have any conflicts except for Monday. I wrote it down.
It was 3 minutes and 48 seconds. Okay. Yeah. Super. Yes. Okay. Did you mark it down that you have? Okay. Okay. I'm going to take 10 minutes. Give me 10 minutes, and then the rest of the hour you can actually attack that Cold War test that, remember, is due next Wednesday. And you have a paper to type.
Heck yeah.
Heck yeah, you do.
Must be
I want to remind you that the Cold War ended with the Soviets withdrawing soldiers from the buffer states, and by extension, the Russian soldiers withdrawing from former Soviet states. That was right around 1989, 1990. True story. I was in Berlin the day the last Soviet soldiers left. My friend and I were studying in Italy, and every weekend is a 3-day weekend, and so you'd be encouraged, go travel, right? So there we are in Germany, there we are in Berlin, and by that time, the Berlin Wall had already been torn down. The Berlin Wall is the wall that surrounded West Berlin. But we knew that there was still part of it up somewhere because we knew that they were planning on building a museum around it. So they were,
Physics.
rather than tear it down and then rebuild it, they were just going to build a museum around it. We knew that it was somewhere, and we were determined to find where. So we rode the metro, the subway, got out at every single stop. One of us would run up, look around, no wall, run back down, and we'd go to the next stop. We were annoying a lot of Germans that day, but all we said in our minds was, World War II, you Nazi. So we got out every stop. We eventually found it. There it was. It was about the length of a football field. It's about slightly shorter than this room. Concrete wall. And there was this annoying chain link fence around it. And there was the sign, and I don't speak German, and my friend Randy didn't speak German. We didn't know what it said. What we did was we did the typical American thing. We pretended we knew what it said. And what we pretended it said was, "Dear American, please climb over this fence and steal a piece of the wall." So that's what we did. We climbed the fence. We had our tools ready. I had my file and my hammer, and I was taking my piece because I deserve a piece of the Berlin Wall. I'm an American.
In broad daylight.
There was no one around. So I got my piece of the Berlin Wall. I have it in my classroom. I'll show you. Stop by sometime, and I'll show you my piece of the Berlin Wall. And anyway, as we're finishing up and high-fiving each other like we got our piece of the Berlin Wall, we're going to live forever. We hear this German guy, and we look, and it's a German police officer, and he's running toward us, and he was yelling German. Again, I don't speak German, neither does Randy, so what we did was we pretended that what he was saying was, "You better start running now, because if I catch you, I'm going to arrest you," and so we did. And we got away. We got away. I heard a lot of nines and spines and halts and stuff like that. I don't speak German. What's this halt? I don't know. Anyway, the point of all that was nothing. When the Soviets withdrew, think about this. Let's say there's a domestic situation at this school. Code red. Somebody in the building, violence or whatever. So the cops show up. And they get the guy. So the criminal leaves. Do the cops hang around? No. Crisis is over. They leave too. When the Soviets withdrew from all of those satellites, so did the Americans. The Americans withdrew from every spot where there was a confrontation, including the Middle East. The Middle East had, during the Cold War, a Soviet military presence, either supporting a communist government or attempting to establish a communist government, and an American military presence, same thing, either supporting a non-communist government or attempting to establish a non-communist government. The Soviets left, so we left. And when everything leaves, whatever was there before starts to fester. How many of you have a brother or sister? Okay? When mom's there, you sit quietly, you talk politely, it's all nice. Then mom leaves. Here we go. When mom's there, nice. When mom's gone, trouble. For you. Same thing here. Whatever was present in the Middle East before the Cold War, now that the Americans are gone, now that the Soviets are gone, it's going to rise up again. The reason I'm pointing that out is because this green country right here had a problem with this slightly darker green country right there. That is Iraq, and that is Kuwait. And I'm going to list for you why. Why did Iraq in 1990 invade Kuwait? Why did they do that? Okay, so I'm going to start rattling off reasons. Reason number one, oil. Kuwait has a lot of it. Still has a lot of it. Kuwait is per capita one of the wealthiest nations on earth. It's a teeny little country with a whole lot of oil. Iraq won. Reason number two, the stupidity of the treaty that ended World War I. Anyone know what that treaty was called?
Treaty of Versailles.
Treaty of Versailles. Very good.
The seventh one.
Yeah, you're about right. Before World War I's end, this was all the Ottoman Empire. It was one thing, the Ottoman Empire. But the Ottoman Empire lost. They lost, and so the victorious countries took the Ottoman Empire and split it up. Do you notice who did not split up the Ottoman Empire?
The people who live there.
Yeah, the people who live there. Who split it up? Some people from here and here and here. This is America, that's England, that's France. These people looked at this map and said, let's split it up. Did they understand tribal divisions? Nah. They understood there's a river. Look at that mountain. Hey, let's make borders based on geography, not culture. Ethnically, there is no difference between the people of Iraq and the people of Kuwait. There's no difference. They're both Arab. You could create this thing called Arabistan. So, why did Iraq invade Kuwait? To fix what the Iraqis felt was the stupid division in the first place. You should not have divided us in the first place. That was dumb. We're here to fix it. Reason number 3, access to water. You want to trade, you need access to water. Iraq doesn't have much. They have a teeny little bit. They wanted more. You want access to water so that you can export the oil that you now own. Okay, let's keep going here. Reason number 4, it's the first domino. Why stop with Kuwait? Let's keep going. Let's reunite with Saudi Arabia. They're fellow Arabs. Let's reunite with all of these Arab countries. Mentally right now, you got to draw a line between this thing called Iraq and this thing called Iran, right there. To the left, Arabs. To the right, Persians generally, right? Now, you might raise your hand and say, what's the difference between Arabs and Persians? And I just told you. Arabs, Persians. There. You raise your hand. What's the difference between the Germans and the French? Germans, French. There. Different culture, different heritage, different history, different language, different holidays. Same thing. Let's keep going. The opportunity was there. Who's going to stop them? How come this happened when it did? Why did Iraq invade Kuwait in 1990? Why not 1980?
The Soviet Union was no longer
That's right. The Soviets were there. We were there. Why did it happen when it happened? Because no one was there to stop them. We weren't there to stop them. Soviets weren't there to stop them. It makes sense when it happened. No police force was there to stop the Iraqis from invading Kuwait. There is no Soviet military there. There is no American military there. The opportunity's there. One slide left, and then I will shut off for today. Any questions about why Iraq invaded Kuwait?
Why?
Funny. The leader of Iraq is this guy. What was his name?
Saddam Hussein.
That is Saddam Hussein. Increasingly in this class, I will show this picture, and people will say, that's Osama bin Laden. Nope. This is not Osama bin Laden. This is Saddam Hussein. He's the leader of Iraq. He dead now, but he was the leader of Iraq. And the question I have on this slide is, why was he popular? Because he was popular in Iraq. The question I have is, well, why? He was a brutal dictator. And reason number 1 I have here is he confronted the bully. Who's the bully?
Us.
We're the bully. True story. When I was 8 years old, we would go to Forest Lake and play with my cousins. And we would play in the sandbox. And I know this sounds like it's from a movie, but it's true. There was a neighborhood bully. And he would ride every day to where we were playing in the sandbox on his bike, get off his bike, and we would say, Tommy's here. So we would all line up, and he would push us down into the sand, and then he'd get on his bike and ride away. And Tommy was like 9 years old, and I was 8, so he was big, and I was little. And we all lined up. Me, my cousins, and I noticed that my little brother Steve didn't stand up that day. He kept playing, and we were like, Steve, get up, get up. And he didn't. So Tommy pushed us all down and then walked up to Steve. Steve stood up, looked at Tommy, looked at his hand, made a fist, and punched Tommy in the nose. It hit well. Tommy's nose started to bleed, and we were about to watch my little brother get the crap beat out of him. But that's when Tommy's mom came out and rescued the situation. And I remember saying, holy Shih Tzu, the dog, only without the zoo, right? And that's when my grandma walked out. I'll tell you, soap doesn't taste good. The point of it, though, is the rest of that day, we did whatever Steve wanted. Steve, what do you want to do now? Well, let's go jump in the lake. Now what? Let's read comic books. Whatever you want, Steve. You're the hero, Steve. You confronted the bully, Steve. That's Steve. He's a hero.
His name isn't
Confronted
Steve.
the hero. Number 2 is he actually did do some good things in Iraq. Iraq is a fairly modern country. I know you have this image of the Middle East that they all ride camels and there's sand everywhere and women cover themselves from head to toe and have absolutely no rights and no one drives cars. That's not Iraq.
That's Syria.
Iraq is a fairly modern country. Are they at the level of us? No. But they have buildings, they have highways, they have cars. Women go to school. Okay, they have hospitals. So they have medicine, schools, women's rights. They have roads. The most important thing is fear. It's all about fear. If you opposed him, you were executed. Very little opposition to this.
It's better to be feared than loved.
So when he told his inner circle, hey, I think we should invade Kuwait, there was no one there to say, you know, Saddam, that might be kind of stupid. It might be kind of a stupid idea. No one was there. He's like Robert E. Lee on steroids, right? No one's there to say, you know, Bob, that's kind of a dumb idea.
Why would you charge those men on
Right.
that hill?
Okay. There, I'm done. Any questions? You have a paper to type. You have a Cold War to test to finish. There are the porta potties. If you just walked in, somebody else at the same table, will you explain the 2 sheets of paper that are at the table? Okay.
Ben.
Thank you. Off you go. Get some work done.
Ben, come back.